Hello everyone, welcome back to the Analyst by Vajiram and Ravi, dated 5th December 2024. Today again, we will be discussing some important topics that has appeared in today's The Hindu and The Indian Express newspapers which are very relevant for your exam. In our first topic, we will look into various aspects of debate going on with regard to the caste census in India, whether it is a useful exercise or not. Then, in our second topic, we will look into various dimensions of illegal sand mining, causes, impacts and some possible solutions. Then in our simplified section, we will take up 5 articles and we will try to explain them in simplest language possible to enrich your understanding of the newspapers. Additionally, we have also incorporated some prelims pointers which is going to be very important for your upcoming prelims 2025 exam. So please have a look on them also and stay tuned. So our first topic is the caste census a useful exercise or not? The context of this topic is that there is an ongoing debate to go for a nationwide caste census in India. There has been various debates in for and against of the caste census between different political parties and other organizations like RSS, etc. So this particular topic becomes important for us. Again, another thing that you have to keep in mind that today's article is more focused on the points against the caste census or issues if we'll go for a full-fledged caste census in India. So as an UPSC aspirant, we'll have to be very rational, we'll have to be very neutral. So our approach should be that, let's suppose any article as it is today, we can extract some points against the caste census. There would be some points or some editorial or article that may come in future, and there has been instances of those articles coming past which were focusing on some positive aspects of caste census. We'll extract some positive points from them. In this way, this process will go on. So the question that you people generally ask, sir, how we should do the value addition? This is the process of doing value addition, that whatever the new updates you are getting, new developments you are getting, try to keep on adding those information in your notes, and that will actually help in enriching your notes, that will actually help in value addition of your notes. This particular topics pertains to syllabus of your GS paper 1 population and associated issues and syllabus of your GS paper 2 government policies and intervention. Our founding father of Constitution, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, has said that the caste is a state of mind, it is a disease of mind, but still caste is very much alive even after the 75 years of independence, and there are various debates that are going on with regard to the caste at this point of time, even in the 21st century, even in the 2024-25. So what actually caste is? Caste is a social hierarchy or social group which is based on the birth, occupation or the social status of the person. Whereas census is an exercise of official enumeration of the population of any one country. So when the official enumeration also incorporates the caste of the people, that particular person belongs to which particular caste, that is the exercise of caste census, so that we can get the data about the various peoples, various population, how much population belongs to one particular caste, and based on that, proponents of the caste census says that there may be a informed policy making, their issues can be tackled well, their welfare can be done well. If you look into the historical background of the caste census in India, the first detailed caste census in India was conducted in year 1871-72, and it mainly covered the provinces of Northwest Frontier Province or NWFP, Central Province, Madras and areas of Bengal, and it was conducted under the W.C. Plowden, who was the census commissioner at that point of time, and he said he actually prepared the 1881 census report, and he said that this all exercise of caste enumeration is altogether very confusing and it should not be done in future because it will not yield some good result, it will not help in a proper policy making, because this caste enumeration exercise is very much confusing and we do not get a proper conclusive data regarding that. In 1881 and 1931, all the castes were enumerated properly. The first census that was conducted after independence in 1951, there was no caste enumeration. but the exceptions has been made for the scheduled caste and the scheduled tribes. Their enumerations, their caste related details were done even after that first census that was conducted after the independence in year 1951. In 1961, Government of India advised the states to conduct their own surveys, caste related surveys, to draw up the state specific other backward classes related information, related data. In 2011, what happened? There was a socio-economic caste census that was done, but it led to identification of 46.7 lakh caste or subcaste with 8.8 crore errors. Now you think at this point of time, if this kind of data can come, or if this kind of data will come, will it serve any point? Will be able to do any informed decision making or policy making based on this much data about the caste? Answer is no, because the caste or surname is very confusing. There are various surnames that is in one particular caste in one state, and it is somewhat different in any other state. For example, Sen in Bengal is also upper caste, and it also being used by some of the Barbar community which belongs to the OBC caste. So it differs from state to state, and there is a lot of confusion that one particular person belong to which caste. Second, this socio-economic caste census was done by Ministry of Rural Development and Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs Ministry. But generally what happens, census is the domain of the Registrars General of the Census, which is an office under the Ministry of Home Affairs. So they are well equipped, they are well experienced to conduct census in India. Whereas the Rural Development Ministry and Housing and Urban Affairs Ministry was not well equipped. The enumerators who were given this task of conducting socio-economic caste census, they did not have much experience about conducting the census, and that led to a lot of confusion. They could not understand the replies of the people, what the replies the people were giving. Also, the questionnaire that was made in this socio-economic caste census was very confusing, and it led to further data that was much more confusing, and that this led to this number that we got, that is more than 46.7 lakh caste in India. But the Bihar, which actually conducted survey in 2022, the questionnaire and the approach that they followed was somewhat little better. More than that, the enumerators who were gone for this exercise, they were given proper training, proper technological integration was done, a ready-made questionnaire was given, and based on that questionnaire only the information has to be given by the people. So they gave that the data that came from the Bihar survey were somewhat better as compared to socio-economic caste census. But again, there were a lot of confusion with regard to one particular caste or the name of the caste that was being used. For example, there was confusion with regard to Hijra or Kinnar community, to which particular caste they should belong. So what are the arguments for the caste census, that whether we should go for the caste census or not? The first important is the social imperative, that if you talk about the marriages, that it is very much necessary to ensure that marriages, what we are seeing at this point of time, that caste is still playing a huge role in the marriages. As per Indian Human Development Survey or IHDS, less than 5% of marriages are still the intercaste marriages. More than 95% of the marriages are the same caste marriages that are happening. So that emphasizes on the point that the caste is again playing a huge role in marriages. So it becomes very much important to identify the caste so that these kind of things can be addressed well, intercaste marriages can be promoted well. Then the elections. You still see that Lok Sabha elections were concluded in year 2024. Assembly elections were recently concluded in the state of Maharashtra and Jharkhand. The caste dynamics plays a huge role, even the starting from the people who will contest the election, the decision of that, who will become the chief minister, who will become the deputy chief ministers, and who will be the part of the cabinet minister. Everything is decided based on the caste. Okay, caste plays a huge role in that. Second, even the people who are making their choices, who are giving their votes, one of the important preference for that is the caste of the persons, caste of the people. So again, the elections are playing a huge role, and this is one of the menace that we have to actually address in the electoral process of India. We have to actually address in ensuring that we have a full-fledged democracy. So when elections the caste is playing huge role. Again, it becomes important to identify caste better as per the proponents of the caste census. Then the caste surnames, even you will see whether you are going for making the Aadhaar card, passports, or any of the official government documents, or even schools, everyone is using surnames. That is what particular caste they are belongs to, and most of these surnames belong to a specific caste. So again, the proponents say that due to these factors, the social imperatives again emphasizes that we should go for the caste census. Then the legal imperative, as per the constitution, there has been the affirmative actions that has been provided to some backward classes. There has been reservations that has been provided to ensure that social justice, which is envisaged by our preamble also, which is envisaged by the founding fathers of our constitution also, that social justice can be provided well. So again, if we'll identify the caste properly, we will be able to ensure that social justice is provided properly. All the underserved or unserved caste who couldn't take the benefit, who couldn't take the welfare from the government schemes, who couldn't take the benefits of various schemes and programs of the government, they can be identified and they can be given that welfare properly. Then the administrative imperative. Okay, there has been time and again we have seen that there has been wrongful inclusion or exclusion of a specific caste in some of the government programs. That, let's suppose there is one particular scheme like Nai Roshni, etc., which is for the scheduled tribe. So there might be some exclusion or there might be some inclusion error where there will be a person who will be taking benefit of that scheme and he should not get because he is not eligible, he is not part of scheduled tribe. Or there is a specific scheme like Stand Up India for the scheduled caste people and other caste people. So if there is a person who's not generally recognized under the scheduled caste, so his or her name may be included in the beneficiary list of that particular scheme if his caste is identified through the caste census. So the wrongful inclusion or exclusion can be addressed well as per the proponent of the caste census. Then again, the moral imperative, that still there are some dominant class. Okay, these dominant class or the caste who generally belong to some of the upper caste are actually the classes who have a majority of the lands, who are rich, who have a majority of the chunk of the government jobs, etc. And they are taking or they are reaping the major benefits of some of the major government schemes and the program. That shows a elitism in the society, and if we have to address that well, we should go for the caste census so that we can identify those caste which hasn't been much benefited from the various government program, from various policies of the government, and they can be better, they can be provided better welfare, they can be provided better support. Also, as per the data from Global Multidimensional Poverty Index 2021, the 5 out of 6 people in multidimensional poverty in India are from scheduled tribe, scheduled caste or other backward class. The ST group are the poorest with 65 million of 129 million people living in multidimensional poverty. And similarly, we have data for the scheduled caste and the other backward classes also. Also, the representation of these SC, ST and OBC population hasn't been very significant in higher level jobs, for example, in various posts of the secretary of the various ministries, etc. So again, this emphasizes that the proponents of the caste census says that to address this wide disparity among the representation of these people in higher jobs in the society, in the various private sector agencies, etc. Also, to address this widespread poverty of these people, we need to go for the caste census so that we can identify these caste properly and we can have targeted beneficial programs for them. However, there are some arguments against the caste census also. For example, the proponents who are against the people who are against the caste census says that there are challenges in collecting the data. For example, after the independence, there has been the phenomenon or process of Sanskritization and desanskritization that has happened. Sanskritization was given by M.N. Srinivas. What has happened in this? lower caste people try to imitate the lifestyle of the upper caste people. For example, diet they are following, the literature they are reading, and other things. The sacred thread they are wearing, the marriage ceremonies that they are following, even the basic rituals like to not have food without having proper bath and worship, etc. So due to get that better status in the society, when these kind of lifestyle are being followed, these lower caste people, some of these lower caste people also change their surnames, where they started using surnames of the upper caste people. So again, at this point of time, when we'll go for this caste census, it will create challenge that, let's suppose there is a surname which is being used by 3-4 different castes. So one particular person will be categorized under which caste? It will be very difficult for the enumerators. Then the process of desensitization happened. It was given by D.N. Majumdar. As per this process, there are some cases where the upper caste people also try to imitate the lifestyle of the lower caste people. For example, in diet, some of the upper caste people like Brahmins, etc. started eating non-vegetarian foods. Also, there has been cases where these lifestyles has been imitated to actually get benefits of some of the government run programs which were specifically designed for the lower caste people. For example, getting benefit of the affirmative action or the reservation policies, etc. So again, if upper caste people have started using some of the names of the lower caste people to get benefit of some of the government run programs, through which is also defined under this process of desensitization, again it will create the issue that that particular upper caste person should be categorized under which caste. Also, there are issues with regard to the caste misclassification. For example, Dhanuk is a scheduled caste and in the Rajasthan, versus Dhanka is also a scheduled tribe in the Rajasthan. So whatever the reply people would be giving, that may be different based on the local dialect. For example, a pronunciation of one particular caste may be different from one region to another region. It will be very difficult for enumerators to properly identify that what the person is saying and in what classification, in which caste of the classification this particular person should be categorized. Also, this proportional representation is also a flawed approach. What is happening? That as of now, the 14-point roster is followed in giving jobs. For example, let's suppose there are 100 jobs. OBC is provided with 27% reservation. So if we will divide 100 by 27, it will come around 3.7. So it will round it up to 4. So every 4th position in a sequence of vacancies would go to the OBC candidate. Okay. Similarly, every 7th position goes to the SC candidate, and ST candidate get every 14th position because 7.5% of reservation has been provided to them, and at a 10th position goes to the EWS candidate as 10% reservation has been provided to them. So based on that, the person who have written this particular text and context in today's Hindu, it says that if we will take the case of socio-economic caste census data, that more than 46 point something caste is there, and if let's suppose take a very basic example that all the caste that is there, everyone is having the equal number of population. So to give a representation to all caste, let's suppose through this UPSC civil services exam, it will take more than 4,000 years to give representation to all the caste. And even if we take the data from the 1931 census or the other census which has been done previously, even then it will take lot of time to give representation to all the caste, because there are lot of caste, and through this process where we are actually providing the proportional representation, means every population, every caste is being represented through one member from their population. It will be very difficult to represent them, and the particular writer of this text and context has taken example of UPSC civil services exam where around 1100 vacancies came every year. So based on that, the person have given this kind of figures. Also, if we'll go for the caste census, it again emphasizes on the point that this may reinforce the caste system. As the Dr. B.R. Ambedkar said that it is a disease of mind and it should be done away with. And we should start with the institutions, we should start with the educational institutions where we need to give them proper education so that we can get rid of this particular issue in the society. But again, when we'll go for the caste system, there are some people, there are some experts who believe that it may again reinforce the caste system in the society, and it will lead to further social division, and that can actually fuel the caste based reservation demands. For example, what we have seen in the Rajasthan, what we have seen in the Gujarat, what we have seen in the Maratha reservation in the Maharashtra, etc. So starting from Gujjar, Jat to Patidars in the Gujarat, etc. There are various communities which are time and again demanding the reservation, and if we'll go for the caste census, it may further lead to social divisions. It will further undermine the social cohesion and social integration in the society. Again, it is very difficult to define the caste. Okay, because there is no proper definition of the caste, and there is no objective criteria based on which caste can be identified. So what should be our way forward? First, we need to clear the objectives and the guidelines if we actually want to go for the caste census. Before even that, there is need for proper deliberation in the society that whether there is need of caste census or not, or the issue or the various problems that are there in the society, like low representation of these people in the jobs, etc., whether that can be addressed well without even going for the caste census or not. Okay, for that we need a proper deliberation and debate in the society, and the forum should be Parliament of India, forum should be the society, and based on that we can actually identify that whether, okay, if the answer is yes, that we should go for the caste census, there should be a clear-cut guidelines that this data will only be used for this purpose. For example, this data will only be used for targeting the beneficiaries under the Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana, or to give benefits to the Pradhan Mantri Kisan Samman Nidhi Yojana, or any specific scheme that can be devised. There should be a clear guidelines, and that data should be used only for that purpose, that is believed by some experts. And it should be for sure guaranteed that data should not deepen the fault lines in the societies that are there already. We already see time and again in various parts of the countries the caste related violence, where the mob lynchings are happening, where the caste related violence are happening. So it will further deepen our fault line if we'll go for the proper caste census, and that data will come in the society. So we need to ensure that it should not deepen the fault line in the society. Third, it is important to do a periodic reviews of this data so that that data can be updated regularly, properly, in a proper time. Also, we need to enlist sociological and anthropological experts who will create a draft list of caste specific to each state, and they will publish the draft list online, and people will give some of their recommendations. Civil society organizations can give their recommendations, and based on that, this draft list can be updated, and it can be further improved based on the feedback that is coming from the civil society organization, that is coming from the people of the society. Also, the subcategorization of caste can be also done, because what we have seen in the case of OBC or other backward classes, that after the subcategorization, the non-creamy layer people who were actually not benefited much before these provisions of non-creamy layer and creamy layer came into the picture, they got benefited properly. So similarly, if we'll introduce the provisions for SC people also, so that might help in actually providing the benefits to the people who are unserved or underserved in the case of scheduled caste also. This is believed by some of the experts. Also, it is very important to use the technology better, because that will actually help in addressing the subjective bias of the enumerators. There will be less interference by the enumerators. Also, with the help of technology, we can have some preloaded information, some preloaded questionnaires, and based on that only a person will have to identify his or her caste. That can actually help in getting proper, objective, realistic data, and that can actually be used properly for proper policy implementation, proper program designing, scheme designing, or for designing various schemes of the government. Also, in 2024 mains exam, what we have seen that there was a question on inter-caste marriage and inter-religious marriage. Okay. So time and again in GS paper 1 social issues, what we have seen that there were several questions which were asked from the topics related to caste, marriage, religions, etc. So that is why we have taken this topic, that this topic might help you in solving some of the questions of your GS paper 1 social issues. Also, one mains practice question from this topic is that discuss the potential benefits and drawbacks of conducting a nationwide caste census in India. Our second topic is illegal sand mining. The context of this topic is that Honorable Supreme Court directs 5 states to provide facts and figures data related to illegal sand mining, and the bench observes that the authorities will have to take measures to check the over exploitation or illegal activities going on with regard to the sand mining in various parts of these 5 states. Also, this particular topic pertains to syllabus of your GS paper 1 distribution of key natural resources and syllabus of your GS paper 3 environmental pollution and degradation. Why we have taken this topic of sand mining is because of the fact that in last 5 years there were 2 occasions when UPSC has asked question related to the sand mining in the prelims exam. Also in 2019 mains examination there was a question related to the sand mining. So what actually sand mining is? It is the removal of primary natural sand and the sand resources from the natural environment to extract the valuable minerals for subsequent processing. From which natural environment they are being extracted? They are being extracted from river beds, they are being extracted from some of the sea shores, etc. Also, sand is a minor mineral under section 3E of Minerals and Mine Development and Regulation Act 1957. As per this section 15 of this MMDR Act, there are state governments who will make rules towards the administration regulation of these minor minerals. For example, shale, limestone, etc. are some of the examples of the minor minerals. Then section 23C of the MMDR Act also empowers the state government to make rules for preventing the illegal mining. So it is the legal mandate from this MMDR Act that is emphasizing that the state government will have to take some measures to address the issue of the sand mining. If you look into the data that has been provided from Ministry of Mines, that as per the ministry there is almost 10,000 to 15,000 crore is what illegal sand mining industry is worth of the major states like UP, Uttarakhand, Bihar, Odisha, Maharashtra, Karnataka, Kerala, etc. 1 lakh crore is the estimated worth of illegal sand mining in India. And illegal sand mining is rampant despite the directions from Apex Court, that is Supreme Court of India, and time and again National Green Tribunal have also given various directions. Also, it has mandated sand mining clearances from Ministry of Environment. There should be Environment Impact Assessment EIA for all the even the small scale sand processing units. They need to go for this environment impact clearances from the Ministry of Environment. Still this is going on at a rampant rate. Also, the Environment Ministry has asked the states to use ISRO's satellites imagery to map mining zones across the every river to put a check on the illegal mining, because that can give us an idea that on what areas these sand minings are actually happening. Ministry has also asked the states to consider installing online GPS on vehicles that are being used to lift sand. And this problem is not only limited to the environment only, but it has also led to several human deaths. And as per this data from the SANDRP report, the reported human deaths related to sand mining in India is almost 418 people are dead between December 2022 to March 2022, and violence and accident killed 418 people in 16 months. Okay, but again emphasize on one point that these are the reported deaths. Okay, most of these deaths which are happening due to the sand mining and illegal activities related to sand mining are unreported, and there is less number of data available for them. Also, as per a proper article in Down to Earth magazine. Okay, as per the Union Ministry of Mine, sand is the fourth most important minor mineral in terms of production after road metals, building stone and brick earth. Yet the government does not collect proper data on volume of illegally mined sand, and cases of illegal mining of minor minerals are present across the country. So government is not collecting proper data with regard to the illegal sand mining. So how will they be able to properly execute the various programs that are there to address the issue of the sand mining? Also, the particular Down to Earth has again given this data from the Lok Sabha starred question, where it has shown in various states what is the number of illegal minor mineral mining leases in 2013-14 and number of illegal minor mineral mining leases and the amount of fines etc. that were realized, okay, in lakh crore. So this again emphasizes on the points that the illegal mining of the minor minerals has been rampant. So what are the reasons for the illegal mining? First, the high demand and the limited supply. As per this data from Oxford Economics, that India's construction market will overtake Japan by 2030. As of now, we are the fourth largest construction market and it is growing at a rapid pace. So that one of the main component for real estate sector or for building various infrastructure is sand, because that is cheaply available. Okay. So demand is very high, but the supply is very limited, because we are getting these sands from some of the rivers, and due to the monsoon and other things, these sand mining cannot happen throughout the year. So again, that creates lot of issues. So due to limited supply and high demand, it is going to be a very profitable business for most of the people. So again, that leads to the cases of illegal sand mining. Then the profitability. As of now, the 1 cubic square feet of sand cost almost 110 to 120 rupees, okay, in some of the states. So again, this is a very profitable business and they are not paying any taxes as such, the people who are involved in this. So this particular business is in tune of thousands of crore in some of the states, and it is one of the lucrative business where the black money is involved a lot. And where this is profitability is one of the major factors, okay, why the people are more attracted towards illegal sand mining. Also the weak regulation and enforcement. Since the MMDR Act specifically says that it should be the responsibility, it should be the duty of the states to prevent the illegal sand mining. However, the role of the state has been lackluster. They couldn't they couldn't make proper laws, regulations for addressing these illegal sand mining activities. And more than that, they couldn't implement those regulations, they couldn't implement those mechanisms because of lack of proper oversight mechanisms. Also, there has been collusion between the politicians, officials, etc., where all the illegal sand minings are getting unchecked. They are not regulated properly because of the lot of corruption that is involved in the process. Also, the inefficient legal framework, where it takes lot of time even to convict one person who is there, who has been prosecuted for any offense for the illegal sand mining. Again, that motivates people towards getting into this business. Also, the shadow of the sand mafias. There are some sand mafias, especially in states like Tamil Nadu and the states like Uttar Pradesh, especially the eastern side of Uttar Pradesh. These people who have good political backing and they are involved in proper political nexus, these people somewhat disturbs the auction process also, and they take these sand mining leases etc. at a much subsidized rate. Also, these are given to special sand mafias to limited number of people. These auctions are not available for most of the people. Also, what happens that there is a limit that has been authorized by the government, okay. that this much amount of extraction of the sand can be done from the riverbed by these people, but they flout all these norms, all these authorization that has been given by the government, and they unsustainably extract sand from that, and due to their political backing, these activities goes unchecked. Also, the inadequate alternatives, for example, the manufactured sand, which is a industry or which is a lab grown sand, its use is still only 8 to 10% because of the lack of proper availability of that manufactured sand. Also, there are some other sustainable alternatives like fly ash, etc., that can be used, but still, due to easy availability of these sands, other alternatives couldn't be made much popular. Also, the poverty and the lack of livelihood options. What happens? Most of these peoples, these workers, these laborers who are living on the banks of these rivers, every year there is flood that is eating up their residence, that is eating up their farmlands, etc. So these people do not have any option of proper livelihood, and sand mining is one such activities where they are getting proper daily wages. Okay, so due to lack of sustainable livelihood, they are only dependent on these kind of activities because they have to fulfill their basic necessities. Again, this is one of the important factor why people get attracted towards these activities. Also, if you talk about the impacts of sand mining, it impacts the riverbed deepening and widening, which may lead to intrusion of seawater in a larger time. Also, the riverbed bank and slope instability happens that may lead to further soil erosion, etc. Also, it leads to reduced sand replenishment, where whatever we have extracted this year, that may not still be available next year. So let's suppose if we are extracting 1000 ton, so still that much amount will not be replenished in next year. Also, it alters the hydrological table, it disturbs the ecosystem, marine life of the riverbed. Also, it leads to riverbed coarsening, where more of the coarse structure like pebbles, rocks, etc. are now there on the riverbeds, which again impact the marine life, fisheries, etc. If you talk about the biological environment, it leads to habitat loss and the fragmentation of the marine life, for example, fishes, corals in case of beach riverbed mining. It also smothers the microorganisms that are there, which is leading to which actually helps in non-pollution of the water, which is eating of various microbes, etc. Also, it leads to reduced respiration and photosynthesis in that water, that further leads to increase in the pollution level, increase in the biological oxygen demand. Also, it leads to reduced presence of benthic organisms. Okay, and it also creates noise pollution in those areas, which further impacts the overall ecosystem of the marine life. If you talk about the chemical environment, how that is getting impacted, it leads to increased turbidity and total suspended solids in that areas, in that water. Also, it leads to increased concentration of heavy metals like mercury and sodium, potassium, etc. in that water. Also, the pollution of air, water and soil, it further comes into these water when being used in the agriculture, etc. Then that is being used by the people, by the consumers, and that leads to concentration of heavy metals in our body also, for example, cadmium, mercury pollution, etc. Also, it leads to destruction of the infrastructure, for example, the roads, bridges, etc. that are there in the periphery. Some of you who belongs to some of the rural areas where these kind of activities happens, you would be knowing that the tractor and the trolleys they are using, the small trucks they are using, they go at such a faster pace, they use such a high accelerators, etc. that it defaces the bridges, it defaces the roads, etc. and which creates problem for overall public. Also, it leads to loss of agricultural land because of the river bed widening. Most of the agricultural land, when that is eroded, that is again becomes the part of the riverbed only, and this leads to loss of agricultural land. Also, the reduced yield of farmers and the fisheries because of the disturbance of the marine life. Apart from that, when the seawater intrusion may happen due to widening of the riverbed, etc., the soil salinity can increase, and that may again make the soil infertile. Also, increased risk of waterborne diseases, Okay, when there will be less microorganism that then it will become difficult to eat up those pollutants that are there in the marine water, that may lead to increased cases of waterborne diseases like cholera, etc. Also, the poor working circumstances, lack of proper social security measures, lack of proper social safety measures further leads to death of these poor people's death of these poor people who are daily wage workers. Also, it impacts the health of the persons, like the various diseases like bronchitis, etc. may happen. It leads to increased particulate matter in the environment that further degrades the air quality, and it leads to various lung diseases and can also lead to lung cancers. Also, it impacts the tourism of that particular area, where because of when we will go for unsustainable river bed mining, it defaces the beaches, it defaces the river fronts that are there, and it may further impact the tourism in that particular areas. So what are the suggestive reforms that how we can address this problem? First, we need to involve the government agencies, community members in monitoring and the surveillance. For example, let's take a very basic example that C-Vigil is an app by Election Commission of India. Now let's suppose there was a malpractice that was being done by some of the people who were contesting the elections, etc. So what the general public can do, they can take a picture of that malpractice and they can upload that on this C-Vigil app, and the central server of this Election Commission of India will transfer this complaint to the relevant authorities and they will take the actions. So why can't we have a similar mechanism for sand mining, where if a sand mining is going on, the person can take a picture or they can make a video and they can upload that on that particular portal or that particular app, and that can be then addressed well by the relevant authorities. Also, we need to understand that until and unless there is a proper surveillance mechanism, until and unless there is proper oversight mechanism, it will be very difficult to address this menace. Also, we need to have strong law enforcement and establishing an efficient legal framework for regulating activities. We need to understand this very clearly, that there is no paucity of laws in our countries. There are various regulations also that has came after the guidelines from Supreme Court and NGT by the government. These regulations are still being not followed properly. The environment impact assessment norms are being flouted. So what we need at this point of time is better enforcement of already laws that are there in place, already regulations that are there in place. Also, we need to find the environment friendly alternative to sand, for example M-sand or the fly ash that is coming from thermal power plants, etc., the dust, etc., that is there in the brick kilns, etc., that can be also used from the these places towards the construction. Also, you would have been knowing that our honorable minister Shri Nitin Gadkari ji has taken various leads where the solid waste has been processed and has been used in construction of various roads at various places. So these kind of things can be done, where some sustainable alternatives can be devised for addressing the problem of sand mining, rather than only focusing on only one aspect, that is sand. Also, we need to plant more trees to save habitat, flora and fauna of the marine ecosystem, as well as it will also help in addressing the soil erosion. Also, we need to create awareness about the harmful effects of the sand minings, that how it is impacting the marine life, how it is impacting our environment, how it is leading to death of people, how it is impacting our health. Until and unless we will create that awareness, it will be very difficult to address these issues. Also, we have to understand one thing very clearly, that until and unless we will provide the people with some sustainable livelihood options, people will have no choice rather than to go for doing this illegal sand mining. So better would be that we need to focus more on providing better livelihood options to these people who are dependent on these places who are situated on the river banks, so that we can address these issues also. Also, the United Nations Environment Programme UNEP Sand and Sustainability Report 2022 gave some 10 recommendations that can actually help in addressing this issue. Also, a mains practice question from this topic: illegal sand mining has become a significant environmental and socio-economic issue in India. Discuss the reason behind this menace and its far-reaching consequences. In our simplified section, our first topic is India's strategic focus on West Africa, and this particular topic pertains to syllabus of your GS paper 2, groupings and agreements involving India or affecting India's interest, effect of policies and politics of countries on India's interest, and this has appeared in today's The Hindu, page number 9. So the gist of this editorial is that in last few years, what we have seen, the countries which are located in the regions of West Africa, we have increased focus on those countries. We have improved our bilateral relationship with these people. We have improved our relationship with the African Union, because we know that these countries are strategically, economically very significant for India. Okay. Also, with the increased interest of China in these countries, again it becomes very important for India to have a renewed focus on these countries, and that's why our Prime Minister have visited Nigeria in recent year. Also, if you look into these countries which are actually the part of our West Africa, they are Niger, Nigeria, Algeria, Mali, Mauritania, and these are the countries which are part of the West Africa. So the context starts with that last month, on his way to Brazil to participate in G20 summit, the Prime Minister Narendra Modi made a strategic halt in Nigeria. Okay, so this was the 19th G20 summit happening in Brazil. 18th G20 summit happened in New Delhi, India. Also, during his first 2 terms, Mr. Modi travelled to 10 African countries, including Uganda, where he delivered a historic speech outlining India's vision for Africa, that how actually India wants to see Africa in upcoming years. Also, his visit to Nigeria is significant as it marks the first African visit of Prime Minister in his 3rd term. Starting from 2024, this was the first visit of Prime Minister Narendra Modi to any African country. And this is also first by an Indian Prime Minister to Nigeria in last 17 years, which again emphasizes on the point that why this visit was very significant. But when our Prime Minister is visiting for the first time in last 17 years, the Nigeria has also reciprocated in a same term. First, the Nigeria it was very evident that Nigerian president welcomed Mr. Modi at the airport itself, which is somewhat a symbolic but very significant event. Then also, Indian Prime Minister was conferred with Nigeria's 2nd highest honor, that is Grand Commander of the Order of the Niger, which is only the 2nd foreign dignitary to receive this distinction since 1961 after the Queen Elizabeth II. So that again emphasizes on the point that what is the stature of our Prime Minister Narendra Modi, what is the respect he is getting in various parts of the world. Also, it underlines India's rising global stature and the trust of recognition of Mr. Modi as gained for his commitment towards the global south. So again, time and again, Prime Minister Narendra Modi and India voices the concerns of the global south. So what actually is the global south? So global south are those countries which actually didn't benefited much from the industrialization. Okay, the countries located in South America, Africa, India, and part of the Asia. These are some of the countries which are part of the global south. So what India is doing, it is somewhat shaping the voices of the global south, that we need to ensure that whatever the issues that are being faced by the countries located in global south, whether the impact of climate change, whether the trade related barriers that are there, whether the tariffs that are being imposed by various developed countries, all that needs to be addressed well, whether the talks that are going on in the World Trade Organizations. So all that needs to be addressed well, all that needs to be shaped in a proper policy so that the voice of global south can be heard properly and can actually lead to significant changes. Also, why Prime Minister Modi visited Nigeria is because it is one of the largest economy and largest democracy in Africa, and it is also a regional hegemon in West Africa and plays an important role at the African Union level. So African Union is an intergovernmental organization which consists of 55 member states that makes the countries of the Africa. And basically it is a continent union with wide range of goals aimed at strengthening its member states both individually as well as collectively. It was officially launched in 2002 as a successor of Organization of African Unity, which was there from year 1963 to 1999, and headquarters of African Union is located in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. Also, it was accorded the membership of the G20 in this 18th G20 summit that happened in New Delhi. So again, this emphasizes on the point that why India's focus has been very much on the African and the countries located in Africa. Also, Nigeria, why the after the visit of the Prime Minister Narendra Modi to Nigeria, there has been various agreements that has been signed by both the countries involving tackling terrorism, drug menace, drug trafficking, and also improving the trade ties between both the countries. And there are possibilities that in future there are some defense agreements may be signed by both the countries. So again, both the countries are tackling various common issues like separatism, piracy, drug trafficking, and for example, Boko Haram is one such group which is leading to a lot of terrorist activities in Nigeria. And similarly, India is also facing various terrorist activities, various terrorism related issues from various organizations like JEM, etc. So this again, when we have to understand one thing, that let's suppose two of your friends are there who have same problem. Let's suppose both of you are facing issues in understanding economics. Then both of you can study together and both the problems of both the students can be addressed well. So this is what's happening in the case of the bilateral ties also, that if there are two countries who are facing similar kind of issues, then with the better bilateral ties they can address those issues well. Also, the president had expressed interest in buying arms from India during this visit, and India is emerging as key defense supplier to Africa with sales to Egypt, Algeria, Morocco, Tanzania and Mozambique. Why? Because with the coming of the Atmanirbhar Bharat, with the coming of Make in India program, our defense indigenization have taken a front seat. So India is looking for some of the players, some of the countries where India can export our defense equipments. And some of the countries in the Africa have shown the interest in buying various defense equipments from India. Also, in over 6 decades of close partnership between India and Nigeria, India has also emerged as a development partner of Nigeria on two fronts. First, offering developmental assistance through concessional loans, that is $100 million, and capacity building training programs shaping the partnership in distinctive India way. In the concessional loans, the loans are with cheap interest and there are various other facilities provided like larger repayment duration is given to these countries. Also, these developmental assistance loans are for building various infrastructure like roads, bridges, etc. Also, the capacity building training programs are being done where various students from Nigeria are being trained in various universities and colleges of India. Some civil servants and their security forces has been also time and again trained in various institutes of India. But there is also why we have a renewed focus on Nigeria is because of the Chinese connection. Nigeria currently has over 200 Chinese company. It is China's largest export market and it is second largest trading partner in Africa. On the other hand, China is Nigeria's third largest export market and China has funded over $47 billion for 22 large size infrastructure projects across the countries starting from ports, roads, railway lines, etc. In 2023, China funded the Lekki Deep Sea Port. The port, one of the largest in West Africa, will relieve the cargo congestion which cost billions of dollars in annual revenue, and it is expected to further boost the ties between both the countries. And this is what is happening in the case of Gwadar Port and the Chabar Port also. When Gwadar Port was developed, again to address strategically that India started developing the Chabar Port. So that's why, since both of these countries, India and China have competing interests. So until and unless we will tackle the China properly in every front, it will be very difficult for us to look after the hegemony of the China. That's why all the countries who have taken various loans from the China, who have taken various investment from the China, are also looking for some partners to diversify their trade, to diversify their investment, and India is one such player which is giving some opportunity to these players. Also, technology giant of Huawei has a significant presence in Nigeria. Also, China is also active in Nigeria's mining sector. And why it is important? Because some of the critical minerals, some of the rare earth minerals are very much significantly present in the African continent and some of the countries like Nigeria. So when we are taking that revolution of industry 4.0, when we are going for a more focused approach on EV vehicles, we need metals like lithium, we need metals, some of the critical minerals, and these countries can provide the availability of those minerals, and that is why China has become very much active in these countries towards mining also. If we talk about trade between India and Nigeria, has declined from 14.95 billion in 2021-22 to 7.89 billion in 2023-24, primarily due to increased oil imports from Russia, because during Russia-Ukraine war, India was getting concessional crude oil, cheap quality crude oil from the Russia itself. Okay, so that's one of the main component of trade between India and Nigeria was this crude oil. When we were getting this cheap crude oil from the Nigeria itself, from the Russia itself, our trade somewhat declined from the Nigeria. Also, Mr. Modi's visit to Nigeria has brought the country into spotlight, but much more sustained effort will be required to convert the goodwill into concrete deliverable outcomes. For example, yes, we got the second highest honor of that country, but we couldn't sign proper agreements where the Nigeria will be buying some of our products. So that is what is going to happen at the diplomatic channels, that is what is going to happen at diplomatic levels, that we will be able to convert all the talks into deliverable outcomes to boost the ties between both the countries. And this is a basic detail about the African Union, its objectives, its global role and other things. And these are the member countries of the G20. Why I have incorporated this? Because in last 1 year, probably in 2021, UPSC has asked one question related to the members of the G20. So you should be a clear idea about the member countries of some major intergovernmental organizations. Our next topic is a 5.3 magnitude earthquake jolts Telangana's Mulugu. This particular topic pertains to syllabus of your GS paper 1, earthquakes, important geophysical phenomena, and this has appeared in today's The Hindu, page number 3. So what actually is an earthquake? An earthquake, in simple word, is shaking of earth. It is a natural event which is caused due to release of energy which generates waves in all directions, and that further leads to shaking of earth, and we feel the earthquake like condition, and it further leads to destructions on the earth surface, like the building collapses, etc. The vibration that happens, they are called as seismic waves, and they are generated from the earthquakes that travel through the earth and are recorded on instruments that are called as seismographs, and intensity is measured on the Richter scale. Also, the location below the earth surface where the earthquake erupts is called as the hypocenter, and the location directly above on the surface of the earth is called as epicenter, and hypocenter is also called as focus. So the context again is that impact of earthquake of magnitude 5.3 on Richter scale that originated 40 km below the ground in the Etur Nagaram forest area of Telangana was felt in central and northern India at this time. National Center for Seismology identified the location 185 km north-northeast of Nalagaon and 219 km east-north district of Hyderabad. So if we look into the anatomy of the earthquake, it is a shaking of the ground caused by the sudden motions along the faults. Faults are the fractures or the breakage on the rocks in the earth's crust, and that leads to release of the energy. This is the fault. Okay. it is a fracture in the rocks that makes up the earth crust. And why this fracture or the fault actually happened? Because of the stress that has mounted. To release that stress, this fracture actually or the fault has actually happened. And this is the epicenter, that is the point at the surface of the earth which is directly above the focus or hypocenter. Then the focus or hypocenter is the point within the earth where an earthquake rupture starts. Again, one cause of this earthquake is rupture of or fault that is happening, that is release of stress or energy. Then second is the plates, that is massive rocks that make up the outer layer of earth's surface and whose movements along the faults triggers the earthquake. What happens? There are plates. When these plates move, either there are convergent boundaries, divergent boundaries or transform boundaries that are found by the tectonic plate movements. Okay. So at time, these plate movements also generates waves, and this can also lead to seismic waves that transmit the energy released by an earthquake. So if you talk about the earthquake waves, they can be categorized into two subheads. One is body waves and second is the surface waves. In body waves, we have the primary wave and the secondary wave. In primary wave, these waves travel back and forth, moving ground in line with the wave, and they are the fastest moving of the waves, traveling at about 6 to 11 km per second, and they typically arrive first on the surface. Why they typically arrive first? Because they can move through all the mediums, that is solid, liquid and gaseous. That's why they appear first on the surface. Whereas these are the secondary waves which move up and down, okay, perpendicular to the direction of the wave. Okay, that this is the direction of the wave and they are moving like this, so that is the perpendicular to the direction of the wave, and this cause a rolling motion in the earth crust. This is somewhat moving like a snake, that how that snakes moves, and they are slower than the P waves, traveling at about 3.4 to 7.2 km per second, and they can only move through the solid material and not through the liquid material. So what is happening in you, as you know that there are different layers, and in our layers of the earth there are molten magma also, and there are various gases also. So when these waves cannot travel through other materials apart from the solid, then again it will take some times to come to the surface. That's why there is a time lag between appearance of secondary waves and primary waves. Then we have surface waves named love waves. Unlike P and S waves, they move along the surface of earth and are much slower. Love waves, named after British seismologist A.E.H. Love, and they are faster of the two types and shake the ground from side to side perpendicular to the direction of wave. This is somewhat moving like this, okay, this is somewhat moving like this, and wave is going like this. So again, this causes more destruction. This causes the falling of the buildings, etc. Also, we have the Rayleigh waves, which is named after British physicist, and surface waves that cause the ground to shake in an elliptical motion. Okay, again, this is causing an elliptical motion that is again leading to falling of buildings and roads, bridges, etc. And they arrive last during the earthquake, but often cause the most damage due to infrastructure due to the intense shaking that they are causing. So, if you look into some basic example, if you want to relate, as prelims exam is nearing, and you would be knowing that stress is building up. Okay, most of you who often meet us says that sir, stress is very high now with the coming of the prelims exam. It is only 5 months left, 6 months left, and we still couldn't complete the optionals, etc. So again, there are various ways by which we can release our energy. Okay, one such way is to address the negative energy is that we can meditate, etc. But let's suppose what happens if we have to understand this phenomena of waves, release of energy. Let's suppose tomorrow, this is just a joke, please take this very lightly, that let's suppose tomorrow you are going to appear in the prelims exam and you have left the part of the ancient history and art and culture altogether, completely you have left that part. When you got the paper in the examination hall in your UPSC prelims exam, you saw initial 30 questions were from the ancient history and art and culture only. Again, that led to built up of stress. But what further aggravated your situation, that the person who was sitting in front of you was reading that paper very loudly. You requested him once that please speak milder, your voice is disturbing me. He didn't pay heed to your voice, he didn't understood what you were saying. He continued reading that paper loudly. that again further aggravated your stress level, and there was a point you were already not getting questions correct, and his voice, his disturbance was further leading to mounting of stress. What you did, there was a rupture. You stand up from your seat and gone to his place. You slapped him twice or thrice, and then the sudden release of waves happened in the examination hall. Everyone was like, what is this happened? An earthquake like situation can happen. At that point of time, UPSC may debar that particular person for future examination. So please don't do these kind of things. Whenever there is mounting of stress, whenever there is building up of stress, try to do some meditation. Try to look into some easier question that can actually help in relieving of your stress rather than slapping someone. If you look into some prelims PYQ that was asked in year 2023 exam, this is a question with regard to the P waves and the propagation of that waves. Again, another insights that I want to give to you people with regard to the prelims exam is that why it is very important for you to look into the things that are going on in the current affairs is because of the fact, for example, look into this. On 6th February 2023, there was a major earthquake in Turkey, okay, Turkey-Syria border, and it led to lot of devastation, lot of deaths. Again, this topic earthquake become very important. It was in news. So rather than asking any current affair question, since this topic was in contemporary affairs, UPSC have asked one question related to the basics of earthquake. You might say that this question was from NCERT itself. But again, why this question was asked in year 2023 in the month of June when the exam was conducted is because of the fact that in month of Feb there was an earthquake in the Turkey and Syria, which was one of its kind, okay, which was very devastating. Our next topic is that as per the Niti Aayog CEO, India had limited success in capturing China +1 opportunity. This particular topic pertains to syllabus of your GS paper 3, growth and development, and this has appeared in today's Indian Express page number 15. So this is a Niti Aayog report named Trade Watch. It is released on Wednesday and said that India has limited success so far in capturing the China +1 strategy adopted by various multinational companies looking to de-risk their supply chains, as said by the Niti Aayog CEO, and he suggested that trade policies under the US president could result in potential economic boom for India driven by significant trade diversion in global trade. Okay, and this has come just after a day of the two large economies, US and China, have entered into a fresh trade conflict, imposing a tit-for-tat trade restrictions on each other. So what is happening? This issue between China and USA is going on for several years, where they are imposing various duties on each other products to curtail the exports from each country. Okay, what happened earlier? In the industrialization phase, most of the companies were located in European countries and in some of the developed countries. However, during 80s, 90s, what has happened that China has provided a favorable conditions to the investors. The wages were very low, cost of production was very low. It led to significant chunk of investment going on in China, where various multinational companies, even companies like Apple, Dell, etc., they have located their majority of the investment, or they have started producing in China. But what happened during COVID-19, when China gone for zero COVID policy, when there were lot of stringent restrictions, which has actually disturbed the supply chain, which has actually hampered the supply chains, and that have reduced significantly the production of these units which are located in China. And that is where this China +1 strategy came into the picture, where these multinational companies have started looking for some other avenues where they can invest. They have started to look into some of the countries where they can invest their money, so that tomorrow if there is an issue in China, we can these companies do not face issue in supply chain resilience, supply chain disruptions do not happen. However, India, due to various issues in the regulations, institutional frameworks, and various other issues with regard to FDI, FPI, couldn't materialize this opportunity very well. Also, so what are the factors that can actually help in further leading to the better investment in country. That is, we need to ensure that labor reforms are happening. We need to simplify our tax laws. We need to ensure lower tariffs are there. Proactiveness in signing free trade agreements and playing a crucial role in expanding our export shares. All these can actually help in expanding our exports, expanding our coverage of the various countries where we are exporting our products. If you talk about the prelims pointers from this topic, that is again this China plus one strategy was this diversification strategy, reducing reliance on China for manufacturing, and this has actually gained its prominence during zero COVID policy. It mitigates the supply chain risk which may happen in future also if there is a significant policy change by the China. Companies can establish production hubs in alternative countries alongside the China's, so that at any contingency the companies can tackle well if there is a contingency that is arising in China. Key locations are India, Vietnam, Thailand and Indonesia, some of the developing economies where labor is cheap, where there is a policy framework which is supporting the investment. It will actually help in enhancing the supply chain resilience, and it will lower the geopolitical and economic risk. The next topic is India's 10-year bond yield drops to 3-year low. This has appeared in today's Indian Express page number 15, and this is with regard to your GS paper 3, monetary policy, financial sector, banking sector and non-banking financial companies. Indian government bond yields declined on Wednesday, with 10-year benchmark yield falling to its lowest level in nearly 3 years on rising optimism over monetary policy easing from the Reserve Bank of India this week. And the spread between 10-year bond yield and central bank key interest rate also slipped to lowest level in over 7 years. Let's first discuss this bond yield and bond price. Obviously, then we'll be able to understand this better. First, what is bond? Okay. So, bond, you can say, is a debt instrument where everything is written: bond price, the coupon rate or the rate of interest which we will be getting, also the frequency of interest payment, whether we will be getting that quarterly, half yearly or on the yearly basis, and all other details are mentioned on this bond itself. After the maturity period, the debtor will have to give this bond price, and he was already giving this interest payment or the coupon payment at a regular interval which was agreed. So this is a bond of West Bengal State Electricity Board, where bond price, coupon payment and all the details are written in this bond itself. So let's try to understand this relationship between bond price and bond yield. So let's suppose this is a bond which is being held by this person A, and the coupon rate or effective rate of interest on this bond is 10%, that is 10 rupees yearly. Okay, yearly payment 10 rupees. Now what happened at this point of time? The market rate of interest was 8%, and that's why this person have invested in this bond. Let's suppose this is a bond of Reliance Industries or any other good company, and this person A have a feeling that tomorrow this company have a good future projection, and this demand of this bond will further increase in the market. And in any way the market was offering 8% rate of interest, and that's why the person have invested in this bond, because here he was getting a greater return. But let's suppose the person have 3 other friend B, C and D. Okay. Also at this point of time, after few months, the RBI increased the repo rate. When the RBI increases the repo rate, when there is liquidity crunch in the market, then market interest rate or the interest rate that is being given by the commercial bank to your savings is further increased. When market interest rate rises, let's suppose market interest rate rises to 12%. Now this person A have a feeling that he is in the loss, because his effective rate of interest on his investment is 10% only. And as you know that in the bond, generally the rate of interest or the effective yield effective rate of interest that person is getting is fixed. So here this person A have a feeling that market is giving 12% and I am stuck in this bond since I am getting only 10% rate of interest. So what he will say, he will ask his 3 of friends that you people are my close friend, please buy this bond from me so that I can invest my money in the market. Now all these 3 friends, will they be willing to buy at 100 rupees? Answer is no, because in any way they are getting the better rate of interest in the market itself. Okay, so in whatever the investment, let's suppose any of this B, C, D will be investing 100 rupees. Instead of buying this bond at 100 rupees where they will be getting rate of interest 10% only, they can invest in the market and they can get 12% rate of interest. So what this B, C, D will say that okay, we'll offer you a lower price than what was the actual bond price and then you can give. B offered him 60 rupees. He was not very good friend. C offered 70 rupees. Also not very good friend. D was somewhat a good friend. He offered him 80 rupees. Now why this person D will buy this bond at 80 rupees? Because with his investment of 80 rupees he can get the interest of 10 rupees, which is almost 12.5% rate of interest, which is much larger than what he will be getting by investing in the market. So why this D will be interested in buying this bond at 80 rupees even? Because this D have a feeling that tomorrow interest rate in the economy will further decline, the market interest rate will decline, and this 12% will further may come down to 10% or 8%, and he at that point of time he will be earning 12.5 rate of interest. Whereas this person A who wants to get rid of this bond A, why he actually want to sell this bond is because of the fact that he have a thinking that tomorrow this market rate of interest will further rise to 14%, 15%, and no one be even willing to buy this bond at 80 rupees, and he or she may have to further bear the loss. So all this trading happen based on the future projection only. So what you are seeing that the bond price have declined and the effective rate of interest have increased, and vice versa happens in case of opposite, that if the bond price is increasing, again let's suppose the bond price have increased to 110 rupees because of fall in market rate of interest, then no one will be willing to buy it. The A will not be willing to sell this at 100 rupees, rather he will charge some extra amount, then effective rate of interest will decline to lower than 10%. So with increase in the prices of the bond, the yields or the effective rate of return is falling. When it has increased to 100 rupees, yield or the effective rate of interest or effective rate on that bond have declined. Whereas if the prices of the bond is falling, the yield or the effective rate of return is increasing. For example, here you can see the price of bond was 100 rupees, it had declined to 80 rupees. So bond price declining, effective rate of interest or effective rate of return or the bond yield have risen, and this is what it is showing, that is the inverse relation between bond price and bond yield. This is what is the inverse relation, and this is what is being said, that it is being said that why the bond yield is dropping, because it is being generally felt that RBI might decline the repo rate in future. The RBI might reduce the repo rate in future. When RBI will reduce the repo rate, the market interest rate will further reduce. Okay. So people will be willing to buy more of the bond which have a better rate of interest than the market interest rate. So at that point of time, the prices of bond is increasing, because A will not be willing to give that bond at 100 rupees. Rather, he will charge greater than 100 rupees, 110 or 120 rupees, because repo rate is going to decline, market interest rate is going to decline, the investment in the market will give lower yield as compared to what is going to get in the bonds. That's why with the increasing with the lowering of the market interest rate, yield also drops and the prices of the bond increases. This was all basics about the bond yield and bond price. Also, yields fall when the quality of the bond is rising. There is greater demand of the bonds, and risk aversion related to the bond, that failure of any one project or failure of the company is not going to happen, and demand of that bond is increasing. Everyone wants to get hold of that bond, everyone wants to get that bond, and it is what is leading to a greater prices of that bond. Whereas yield is rising when the quality of the bond is falling, less number of people are willing to invest in that bond, and the risk aversion associated with that bond is rising, and demand of that bond is falling, and that is driving down the price of that bond. This was all basics about the bond price and bond yield. Next topic is, will Reserve Bank go for the CRR cut? This is again related to GS paper 3 monetary policy, and this has appeared in today's Indian Express page number 50. The context is that although there seems to be a broad consensus that the repo rate, the key policy rate, is likely to remain unchanged at 6.5%, in 3-day monetary policy review that got underway on Wednesday, that there is expectation that RBI may announce a cut in the cash reserve ratio. Why? Because there is liquidity crunch in the market, and this has also been reflected in the lower GDP growth rate figures, because banks do not have proper money to lend to the businesses. Businesses are not getting money, they are not getting loans, and they are not investing in the economy. That is further driving down the production of the goods and services, and it is also getting fueled by the lower demand of the goods and services. That is somewhat leading to a condition like of recession, and that is further driving down our GDP growth rate. So at this point of time, when inflation is already very high, it is likely that RBI may not reduce the repo rate directly in this upcoming meeting, but there is a feeling that RBI may cut the cash reserve ratio or CRR, so that the banks have somewhat greater liquidity and they can lend to the various businesses. If you talk about the basics of CRR and SLR, that every commercial bank must keep a percentage of their total deposits with the central bank, that is Reserve Bank of India, and main function of this CRR is to limit or enhance the supply of money in the economy. For example, if RBI is cutting CRR, means it wants to increase the liquidity in the market, because now banks will have greater funds to lend in the economy, and that will lead to greater liquidity in the market. And this is maintained by RBI in form of liquid cash. The bank have to give this CRR funds in complete cash, and banks do not generate any interest in the CRR that is maintained with the RBI. If you talk about the SLR, this is a ratio of net demand and time liabilities of the bank, which is to be retained with the bank in the form of liquid asset like cash, gold, government securities, etc. And this is to limit the expansion of bank credit so as to ensure the high solvency of the bank. Tomorrow, if there is a case of bank run or bank failures, the bank have some cushion, bank have some fund to address that contingency. Also, commercial bank maintains liquid asset with themselves in the forms of liquid assets. They are not to be mandatorily maintained in form of cash only, rather gold and government securities can also be held in the SLR portfolio. Also, if you want to draw an analogy, you can draw that analogy in our childhood when we were bringing one chocolate from the market. There was some share that was kept by our mom, because her reasoning was that eating lot of chocolate can lead to cavity in your tooth, can lead to lot of sugar in your body. So please give me some part of that, and she will keep that in fridge, and that she will give at later part of time when she had to do some work or she wants us to do some work. So that is where similarly CRR and SLR is there, where some part is being kept mandatorily by RBI, so that tomorrow if there is a contingency that is happening, that can be addressed well. Tomorrow if there is a liquidity crunch, that can be also addressed well. This was all from today's Analyst. Thank you very much. All the best.